What's up, guys? This is Daniel from Valor Comic Services, and welcome to the channel. Today, we're going to be taking a look at my top 10 action figures for 2022. Now, the criteria for this is these are figures that I've had to have bought and actually received for my collection. So, just a heads up, there's not going to be the Venom or Null 2-pack or the Amazon exclusive, the Life Foundation Venom. I just didn't have the chance to pick those up. I'll probably get them later on down the road, but was not a necessity for me for 2022. Now, these figures are ones that I was really excited about, and I'm very eager to get this video posted for you guys. That, we'll go ahead and kick it off and look at the top 10 action figures for 2022. Starting off this list at number 10 is from the animated series Cyclops. Now, this was a Hasbro Pulse exclusive. It's part of the cel-shaded animated show series that they have. And this is a incredible Cyclops figure. I've wanted a butterfly jointed style Jim Lee era Cyclops for a really long time, but was just waiting for one. At one point, I was going to try to do a custom. However, I just never took the time to do it. They've fixed a lot of things that the old Cyclops had wrong with it. Now these are molded and fixed into place. Even for this to be animated cell style shading, it looks really good. The figure's great. The only reason this figure is not number one on my list is the portrait. Had it come with an angry style screaming head, then it would be number one. So now I'm having a look at getting a custom portrait for Cyclops. That way I can have it to my preference, and then we'll be set. If you don't have this figure, I highly recommend it. It's amazing and totally worth picking up. At number 9 is Baron Zemo. Baron Zemo was a Walgreens exclusive. Initially, I was going to pass this figure up, but I'm glad I didn't after seeing Mike the Hunter's, I believe it was his video where he's showcasing his display. He mentioned this figure, and then I went to go find it, and this figure is freaking incredible. If you were able to snag him around Christmas time, Walgreens had a giant clearance sale where this figure was $7, and fortunately I was able to get it at that point. But it's perfect. Like, there will probably never be a better Baron Zemo figure, although the MCU one from last year, that's a great representation of it, but if you need that classic comic style look, this is definitely the way to go. That head portrait is incredible. It's sculpted beautifully, and on that dumbbell joint, it gives all types of range of motion to it. I love the whiteout eyes. I love that this is sculpted in with a paint. They never do that, so that's really sweet. And I'm super excited for this figure. I love it. At number 8 is going to be Doctor Strange. This Doctor Strange was a Walmart exclusive. He was really difficult to find. However, I was lucky to have someone order one for me, so I was able to get one that way. But this figure is really great. They put a lot of time into the sculpt of the figure. That way it had everything looking puffy the way it was supposed to. The way they painted the gloves is great. He came with 3 different heads, and the portraits that come on them are great. They're top-notch for what they are. I did a head swap with the What If Evil Doctor Strange, and I like how this looks. To me, it's great. I like the little point to his beard and his goatee. And I'm very happy with how this looks, so that's how I'm keeping him. The only thing that would make this figure better is if I could put a wired cape. However, based on everything I've seen, that is a pain in the butt to be able to cut this little cloak off of him since it's sculpted so well into his collar, seen here. But other than that, this is a great Doctor Strange figure. If you don't have a comic book style or 616 Doctor Strange, this one's worth picking up. At number 7 on this list, we have Toad. Toad is part of the 20th anniversary series, much like Captain America back here, but we'll get on that later. And a lot of people are excited to have this Toad. This first Toad we had since the Toy Biz era. Now, I was expecting Toad to be on the Doc Ock body, as Toad's normally known as kind of a little chubby Hobbit-style body. However, they put it on the skinnier body, and this is great. The engineering that they put into this figure is really incredible, where he has the drop-down hips just like Spider-Man, and he also has the diaphragm joint with additional hinge right there for added range of movement. The head portraits that come with it are great. They have tons of paint added to it as well as texturing. And I mean, just look at this tongue. Of course, Toad has a wicked tongue. And he also came with a portrait that didn't have the tongue out. I put it on my Carnage custom to kind of make a Cletus Cassidy of it. And I like how that looks, so I'm fine with keeping it that way. This way is a very Jim Lee style of head sculpt. A lot of times whenever Jim Lee was drawing Toad, he didn't necessarily always have his tongue out. So that's very much like that. And just look at that. They put a wash in the red hair. And you can't beat that. So I'm glad they went that extra mile. With Toad, they made his legs pinless joints. If the arms were pinless to match too, that would have given him a little bit of better ranking. But for what this is a perfect Toad figure. If you have a Villains or just a Brotherhood of Evil Mutants display, he fits perfect. As a standalone figure, he is well. Now, is he worth that price point of like $35? Not really. If you were able to get him when it was marked down, then it was definitely in your favor. But this was a really great figure for the year. They put a ton of effort into adding little washes and the wrinkles and creases of it. The sculpting on the figure overall is just incredible. And this is a very well-deserved figure for 2022, and I'm glad we got it. It's going to be the 20th anniversary Captain America. This Captain America is really incredible. There's only a few minor gripes that I have, but that fits my preference. For instance, it came with the shield, and it has peg holes where you can plug in different accessories. Now, the accessories they gave are incredible. You can have bullet holes, you can have a swipe effect, so say if you wanted to use Baron Zemo, like mentioned earlier, you can create that effect of a slash, even little energy ports, so say if you have a Hydra soldier pointing a gun at them, it can get that effect. So that is super cool. That's really neat. I'm glad that they did that. You just need to replace the shield with one without holes to give it a better look. And they went all out, giving the beautiful wash and texture to the hands. That way, it just creates a better quality look. You cannot beat the head sculpt. It came with this mask head sculpt as well as an unmasked, and both are just incredible for the Hasbro line. I love how they added the straps to it to give it a more aggressive look. Now in 2023, we will be getting a Ultimate style cap that has a different style of boot and glove. And I'll probably be doing some kit bashing, and it's also going to depend on how the mafex cap is going to look when it is released. But for just needing a cap in your collection, you honestly cannot beat this one. Now, number 5 on this list is going to confuse you and throw you off. It has nothing to do with anything seen so far, but it is Mattel's Ultimate Edition Kane. Now, you're probably thinking, what the hell? Why is there a stupid wrestling figure on a top 10 list consisting of comic books and superheroes? Well, when I was a kid growing up, I was a huge wrestling fan. I'm still a huge wrestling fan. I just don't keep up with it as actively as I used to. So this figure triggers a ton of nostalgia for me. It's also on butterfly joints, which I'm a sucker for. The figure also has pinless joints for the arms. Now, in a scale comparison next to a Marvel Legend, here he is next to Carnage, which is a 6-inch figure. He scales very big. It's in that 7-inch line, closer to a Mcfarlane, seen here. And yeah, I saw this Kane figure and I fell in love with it and honestly just wanted to have it. The fact that he comes with this open hand, perfect for a choke slam, was ideal for me. I had a lot of fun just playing with this guy and having fun and going through the motions of him pulling down his glove and getting ready for a match. And of course, you know, whenever Kane was getting ready for his choke slam, posing him up like this. And I've had him sitting on my shelf just like that for months. When I was having this dude sit on my shelf, I enjoyed looking at him. So whenever I was messing with it, I knew right off the bat that this was going to be one of my top 10 figures of the year. And he did not disappoint in any capacity. I'm super glad to have this Ultimate Edition Kane. And even if you're not a huge wrestling fan, but you were as a kid, then if you were a fan of Kane, this figure would trigger nostalgia, probably for you a lot like it did me. Definitely worth getting. At number 4 on this list, we've got Black Panther. Now, when this Black Panther was released as part of the Black Panther 2 wave, I initially was not going to pick it up at all. I wasn't too impressed with it, other than the fact that it was just a comic book version of Black Panther with butterfly joints and pinless. However, after a lot of people in the toy community started talking about how great this figure was, I decided I was going to give it a shot, and I was able to pick him up on clearance when it was $15. And it doesn't disappoint. In fact, I would say this is a figure that would be like a must-have. If you were someone that was just getting into Marvel Legends, this is one I would highly recommend. The pinless joints are really great. They give it a more import feel to the figure, and it's just really fun. There are some mods that you may need to do, such as shortening the stems for the shoulder peg. That way you can get a bigger range of motion out of the butterflies, but that's not a big deal at all. He came with this cape, which is not necessary. It's a cape that's attached to a cowl, and if you want to remove it, you can. It's super easy to remove, but it just kind of gives a little bit more of a presence to it. For example, when you pair him next to Cap, it looks great. The head sculpt is what really makes this guy special, because it's just a black mask. Like, there's nothing too crazy to it, but the way they put these little textures and wrinkles into the mask, and the way the eyes are pearly white, it really stands out. An amazing figure, and once I got it, I couldn't put him down. I really enjoy him. I highly recommend you add him to your collection. Coming in at my number 3 pick is from the Hasbro Pulse exclusive Mojo World box set, MOJO. Now, this figure is great and a very much needed release. So we've been needing a MOJO for a really long time, and the team did great with it. Like, all these liver spots, the coloring, the details of all the little wires that go through, and the fact that they make it look like he's floating, or at least that his little spiders are carrying him. It looks great. It's a really cool figure. What really hurt it to me was that initially, to get this figure, you had to buy a box set that had 4 figures in it at a price of like $150. Now, MOJO is a giant figure. Just the scale of them is impressive for what it is. And the more I play with it and try to post them around, the more I enjoy it. But definitely don't miss out on this for your X-Men collection or your Marvel collection in general, because this dude stands out on a shelf. He's impressive, and he's an essential. So if you haven't had the chance to get him, I highly recommend him. Like, look at all this. Look at all the sculpting that went into the dude, how it flows back here and goes down into the base. You can see all the little nasty details going through the back. The scorpion tail is impressive. It's huge. Like, this dude scales close to 10 inches. And honestly, you can't go wrong with them. So, number 3, MOJO. At number 2, we have the mafex Homelander. This figure is incredible. Whenever I picked it up, I was blown away by him. I love the soft wired cape. It's excellent. The head sculpts are incredible. Definitely the best toy representation we have of Homelander. I know there's several other companies that have put one out, including NECA, but the head sculpts for this actually look like Anthony Starr. And the angry head sculpt with the red glowing eyes, that just looks sick. Butterfly joints are really well done. Even the little eagles on his shoulder, they have hinges so they're not stuck in one place to allow you to rotate out more. He comes with interchangeable parts for that chest plate. And I have probably had more fun with this figure than anything else on this list. I received mine, I want to say, back in January of this year. And for probably 2 months, I didn't have to pick up any other figures because I was just happy with this one. I knew as soon as I picked this one up, he was going to be my top 10, just because of how much I was enjoying posing him around, putting him in different spots in my room. And I really love this figure. Even the little texture to his boots at the bottom, they went all out with the details and the sculpting of it, and I'm just grateful to have it. If you were a fan of The Boys, like me and my wife, we love The Boys, so this was a must for me. I haven't picked up the Butcher from it, even though I've heard that Butcher is better than this Homelander figure. Homelander is a really fun figure to put with your collection, especially when you can have him doing standoffs against, say, Cyclops. And it is one of my favorite overall figures in my collection now. At the number 1 spot, it is not Spider-Man. We got a ton of great Spider-Man figures this year, commemorating the anniversary where Spider-Man first appeared in 1962. This was his anniversary, and they gave us a lot of anniversary figures, especially Bombastic Bagman over here, this comic Earth 616 Iron Spider. That's an incredible figure. Pinless joints, butterfly joints, top-notch work on the tendrils. Love having that one in the display. Probably my personal favorite is the Ben Reilly. The only thing that will make this figure better now is if he's on pinless joints, but I have loved this figure from day one of getting him, and he is definitely in my top favorite figures overall in my collection. I'm a 90s kid growing up, so this costume was pretty much what I had as my childhood and what I remember. I've always been a giant fan of Ben Reilly Spider-Man, so having this suit is really special. I can't wait to get an update with pinless joints and then the toe articulation. Do have the mafex option, but I like the build to the Marvel Legends figure a lot better than the mafex. To me, the mafex is a little bit too skinny. However, you have to give it up for the Renew Your Vows Spider-Man. Now, what makes this one special is pinless joints and the toe articulation. You would not think that makes much of a difference, but my lord, does it ever. Now, you also have your other options, the Amazing Fantasy 15 Homage Spider-Man. That's a great figure. They're introduced a new Spider-Man body mold that they'll probably begin incorporating. That's a hybrid of different. That figures really well. I just preferred this one for my look. I did a head swap between this and the Ben Reilly when it first came out. So this bigger eye Spidey is now on Ben Reilly, and the short and narrow one is on this one. I feel like this gives it a more John Romita senior look to Spider-Man. That's my preference. And to me, this is just the definitive Spider-Man. I don't really see myself needing to get another one unless I got the mafex comic suit. But as is, I'm beyond just the pinless joints and that little bit of toe articulation. You wouldn't think it adds that much, but man, when you're posing him around and having fun, it really does set him apart. So, have to give Spider-Man his props in this list. They went above and beyond for Spider-Man this year, and there's a ton of great figures just for Spider-Man that you're able to pick up. So, thank you, Hasbro, for that. Now, to get to the real number 1. At number 1 for 2022 is the DC Mcfarlane Build-A-Figure ATROCITUS. With ATROCITUS being a Build-A-Figure from the Blackest Nightwave, to me it's a no-brainer. ATROCITUS is overall one of my favorite comic book characters, and especially one of my favorite DC characters. If you haven't read the Blackest Night storyline or the Sinestro War, the stories that involve the Red Lantern Corps, I highly recommend reading those. Those are some of my favorite stories of all time, especially Blackest Night. If you have not been able to read Blackest Night, highly encourage you checking out Comic Books Explained video to get familiar with it, because that story is incredible. Now, with this Build-A-Figure, he's huge. You're seeing me do all kinds of shifting around just to get him into the frame, comparing it to the scale of MOJO back here, which he hardly even fits to scale next to. This dude is huge, which is what you want for a Build-A-Figure, especially one of this scale. The texturing of his suit is incredible. Like, even though it's just a black suit and you could have gone a different route, you can see where they sculpted in pretty much every muscle into the figure. And when the light hits it in different areas, you can just see all the muscles underneath the suit, even on the biceps. You can see veins popping out from underneath the suit, which is just really impressive. One thing that McFarlane did great on this figure was the hands. Normally, McFarlane is known for giving you hands. They'll give you trigger hands or holding hands, versus with this one, you get one fist and one open hand, and that's all you need. That creates a lot of opportunity for good poses, action shots, what have you. The face sculpt on this guy is really well done. They added a little bit of a wash into it, which you don't see too often to bring out the sculpt. There was already some paint added to it, and this dude is a must-have for me. I was so excited to see that ATROCITUS was coming out as a Build-A-Figure, and it did not disappoint, and it exceeded every expectation I could have possibly had, making him #1, and will probably forever have a place in my background. And there you have it, guys. That's my top action figures for 2022. I would love to know what your top action figures were, what action figures you collect, whether it be Hasbro, McFarlane, mafex, or any of the other import lines. I'd like to know what figures you were excited about and which ones you were also let down with. If you made a top 10 list, shoot me a link to it, that way I can check it out and we can have fun hanging out. Till next time, guys.